Welcome back to another episode of Banditland Boulevard. Trevor Hauer, and across from me via the Zoom platform, we got Tony LaMonica recapping week 7. The Buffalo Bandits in a snowy trip down the I-90 beat the Rochester Knighthawks in their second home, the War Memorial, or Blue Cross Arena at the War Memorial, by a final score of 15-13. A back and forth game. A lot of shots, 64 for Rochester, 62 for Buffalo.
Mhm.
I mean, those are the games where if you paid 20 something bucks on StubHub, you got what you paid for. Um, you know, we had Kathy Hochul in our ear over here in Grand Island saying, "Yeah, Trev, you're not going to drive your car down." So I had to watch the game on CW23. Unfortunately, couldn't make it. But it was a win nonetheless, 15-13 against our arch rivals.
Yeah, it's a surprise too, because I mean, after the first quarter, we're like, this is going to be maybe a 20 to something game. And we didn't know for sure which way it was going to go. I mean, Rochester looked like they just found a way to beat Vince, and our guys were finding a way to beat. It wasn't Hartley.
Nope.
Who was our goaltender
Hutchcraft.
for the day? It was
Hutchcraft.
Hutchcraft, and Hutchcraft was not looking too good either. So again, it was like a game of runs in the first half, and then it finally slowed down in the second. For one team, it did, but thankfully for the better team, they buckled down, they took a deep breath, and they moved forward to get that victory slightly by two.
And this is why the game of lacrosse, indoor lacrosse, is so funny to me because
Mm.
if you were to tell me, and I didn't even watch, if you're going to tell a fan that didn't watch the game and say, look at these stats, the Bandits gave up 7 goals in the first quarter, they got shut out
Yep.
in the third quarter, and it was tied 10-10 at halftime. And if you told the fan that didn't watch this game, the Bandits squeaked out a win, you'd be like, what? Like, the Bandits got dominated in the third quarter, dominated in the first quarter, and it was somehow 10-10 apiece, and the game was on pace to be 21-20 in overtime finish. That was kind of
Mhm.
how it was looking to go. Rochester with a backup goalie beating us by 2 going into the fourth. Um, it's just such a weird game, but it was such a back and forth type of game. That's why I said earlier you got what you paid for if you were in attendance for this game. Matt Vince, he looked beatable. His old boys in Rochester pretty much had their way with him. It was similar to the game last year in Rochester, where Matt Vince was constantly getting beaten over the shoulder by the sidearm shot, but he seemed to buckle down and rebound. That fourth quarter looked like Matt Vince from the championship finals. Like he wasn't there for the first 3 quarters, but he definitely showed up when it mattered the most in the fourth quarter, and he
Mhm.
was lights out. And I think that was a big reason why the Bandits pulled that one off. And it's a game of runs. All the Bandits needed was a run. The Rochester Knighthawks had one earlier in the second quarter. Buffalo came back with one in the fourth quarter when it mattered most, and that's why the Bandits won this game.
Yeah, surprisingly too, because when Ryan Smith and Kyle Waters had his number, they were just lighting up the lamp. And basically, that was kind of worrying about the whole what's going on with our defense, what's going on with our goaltender. Everyone's like, oh, we should look at there's the real Matt Vince. His age is finally caught up. It's not looking too promising for number 48. But you guys got to understand something too. He's been in situations like this before. And we've all said this 1,000 times on the podcast. And I'm sure the broadcasting for the Buffalo Bandits have said the same exact thing. But you got to give where credit is due. And Matt Vince never quit. That's the thing. After that ugly first quarter, yeah, he probably walked to his defense and says, guys, a lot of that's on me. I have got to step up for you guys too, but also we have to step up as a unit, as defensively and goaltending wise. We need to slow them down somehow and find a way to shut them up because we are gonna. It looks like we're gonna get slaughtered again that very night until again, our offense was waking up to, like with names like Chris Cloutier, Josh Byrne, Chase Fraser, Dane Smith doing his thing with the, being a playmaker, Kyle Buchanan too, lighting it up. But again, the one name out of the two that I've mentioned, Ryan Smith has always been a bandit killer. And that's what scares me when we play Rochester all the time. And I'm not saying no offense to like Connor Fields or any of those guys that used to play for us, like Matt Gilray. But again, Ryan Smith is one of those guys you need to lock up because if he gets more than three, God forbid, we lose games like that. And that almost proved it that very night.
Yeah, Riley Smith is. I mean, he was definitely my one of my players to watch, other than Connor Fields, and I didn't even
Mhm.
expect Waters to have a night like he had. I mean, that was incredible too. But Ryan Smith has been that thorn in our side. If we're gonna beat Rochester 20-8 in the playoffs, Ryan Smith's scoring like 4 or 5 of those goals. I mean, that's just how it is. He's really good against us. He's a great player. I believe he went second overall in 2020. Uh, for all the
Mhm.
good reasons. I mean, he's just a freak on the lacrosse floor, and he knows what he's doing. But I mean, that wasn't enough for them to put us away. And
Thank God.
I think I think a lot of the Bandits players watched this show because right after, Brad McCulley gets traded, I said our physical game is shot. We're not going to be a physical team. I see Nick Weiss laying body checks. I see Josh Byrne laying body checks. Emerson Clark in the first quarter dropping the gloves. How about that? Emerson Clark beating I don't even know who it was, but he got
It
a
was
couple
Biles,
Biles. Yeah, he got a couple great
Tyler
shots in
Biles.
there, and I mean, it was just a back and forth great fight. Biles got a few in the beginning of the fight, and then he came in. Emerson Clark came in with a bunch towards the end. A good scrap, and I think it's a fight that we needed to see because the Bandits, I, they had to show. Yeah, we lost a physical threat in number 10, but I mean, we're still gonna bully you on the field, and if that means we got to drop the gloves and do an old fashioned butt whooping, then that's what we're gonna do. Emerson Clark wore that fight on his sleeve, and number 7, man, he looked a lot better in this game than he did in his debut against Georgia. He was catching passes, setting players up in front of the net. I saw him out there on the power play too. I'm like, you want to use him on the power play? Okay. If he starts to score, which I don't even know if that's really his role, if he starts to score, count me in. I mean, I'm buying whatever you're selling. If you're gonna give me Emerson Clark goals, fights, and assists and power play minutes, sign me up.
I mean, basically what I saw, I mean, that's a perspective to look at too. But also there was a few times where he felt like he was back at game one again. Like he just didn't to me, he didn't really click, like have that switch on as much, but he was still trying to figure out the game style of the Bandits. I mean, yeah, he had a few games off. He comes back now knowing that Brad McCauley has been traded. And then it's like, okay, I gotta get back into rhythm again. And sometimes for players, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't click in their head to make sure to go, okay, this is what I gotta do. Here's my role. I gotta set picks, or I gotta, be a playmaker or start scoring goals. I mean, he did take, let's see, he did take a few shots this game to try to see, okay, maybe I can do this too and be
He had a
another left-hander
breakaway
that we
too.
can possibly have.
Yeah.
But it just, I mean, yes, great that he's tough and he's not going to be bullied. That's awesome. He'll fight for us. Number two, he'll be a playmaker because he has, again, I believe another assist off this game. But again, he still needs more time to play to like process it, because I think it's once he gets that playing time, kind of like how Brad McCauley came in those few games when he first started off and he
Yep.
was kind of shaky, but he was still promising. That's what we need to see out of Emerson Clark. It's not just about fighting. It's not just about playmaking, but it's also knowing the system of how JT runs the team. And if you're not going to be, if your head's all over the place and you're going to be all over the field and you just don't know what you're doing, that's not going to make you stay on the team as much. But if you learn and you buckle down and you really learn the system, and then just things fall into place, you will be a member of this team more often and you will see more playing time. But again, kudos on the fight.
Hmm.
Kudos on trying, and he's got. I think for me, his role, he needs to set picks a little bit more.
Yeah, he's a shorter player, shorter transition, but you know what? You can still set the picks. I compared him to like a shifty playmaking Brandon Francis. A guy
Could
who's
be.
he's not afraid to get down and dirty with you. He's not afraid to drop the mitts with you. But he sets up players so much. I mean, what do you get? 2 assists and 7 penalty minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
that was what I wanted to get into in a little bit. But the first thing that I wanted to look at was our power play. Once again, this team is dangerous on the power play. You take a stupid penalty against Buffalo, they're gonna make you pay for it. Another night where they get 3 power plays and they score at least 2 goals on them. But this power play is great, and I think the goal that Chase Fraser scored to not up the game at 12. I don't even think
Yeah.
that was a power play goal, was it? No, it wasn't. It was just that was an even strength goal. But I have to mention this goal because the underhand sidearm that went top shelf, I say goal of the night right there. there were a lot of great goals on both sides of the floor between Rochester and Buffalo, but only Chase Frazier's going to score that goal. I mean, from the right, just inside of the restraining line, takes an underhand sidearm and somehow goes top shelf where Mama hides the cookies. Chase Frazier, you're the man, dude. But that power play, we know how to execute it. So if we can bait teams into taking dumbass penalties, you've proven time and time again you're dangerous on the man up.
Yeah, Chase has really been one of those guys that, again, his playing per time, like every time he's been on the field, he's averaged 2 goals per time. And that's all you can really ask for from Chase, that or from any lacrosse player. If you can give me 2 goals and you're a secondary scorer and you're doing that, that's fantastic. Especially, I mean, he didn't score on the power play. Yeah, that's okay. Usually that's where we see him score his goals. But to see him score in even strength, that's even better, because when it comes down to where we need somebody to score besides Josh and Chris and Dane, he's one of those go-to guys that they're thinking, 95's been overlooked. Let's see how he can do under the pressure, and let's see if he can score the goals when we need it. So he's obviously proving it every single game he's stepped on the floor so far, and he's done amazing things. He's averaged, what has it been, Trevor? At least 3-4 points per night, if it's
Easily.
not the 2 goals and the 2 assists that he has.
Yep.
But again, that's unreal that how much after his injury coming back and stepping up, averaging 3-4 points per, you can't ask for something better than that.
And we always compliment Chris Kluche's sidearm and how lethal that is. You can't overlook 95's sidearm shot. That's equally as lethal, and it doesn't get talked about as much. But I love the depth we have on this team. The secondary scoring was the reason why you won this game. It wasn't goaltending. It wasn't defense, obviously, because both teams had 60-plus shots. But, I mean, the secondary scoring, it was the same way it was last year. And, you know, when all your starters went down, your secondary guys stepped up. Same thing happened this time, and we scored 15 goals on the Rochester Knighthawks at the War Memorial. 15-13. You couldn't ask for a better finish. And when we talk about the game of runs, we can take a 5-minute penalty, in which I think Cam Wires did there in the third quarter, which set up 2 Rochester goals. I believe that they only scored on, they scored on both goals in the power play. I think at one point we were down 2 men, and then that was really what put the Knighthawks in the driver's seat there. But then you look at the fourth quarter, 5 straight goals from McKay, Fraser, 2 from Byrne, and 1 from Kluch. Great, and it wasn't really a typical Kluche goal. It was a underhand pass from Byrne that he just put over the shoulder. I'm like, I don't care how you do it, just put the ball in the back of the net. Hutchcraft looked like he was, I don't want to say standing in cement shoes, but he was caught flat-footed a couple of times. When you baited him to go down low, he's leaving that high side wide open, and it takes him longer to get up than maybe a God, what's his name? The starter for Rochester would. Hartley. Yeah, it would take, Hartley's usually on the ground, but he jumps right back up. When you're looking at a backup like him and he's inexperienced like Hutchcraft, you can bait him into taking, making stupid moves and stuff like that. Like, you bait him to go down low, you easily put it up high. And I think the Bandits really exploited that, especially in the fourth quarter and the first quarter.
Yeah, you got to admit that, that 5-goal run is what they needed to help them win that game. And of course, they, when you have to have a goaltender to like falter, I'm going to say a live mirror, basically Nick Rose on one side, here's Hutchcraft on another. You're basically facing the same. If you make him commit, he's going to leave open spots for you where you're going to have to like aim for all the time. So think of it like as Ryan Smith shooting up against Matt Vince, picking that corner every time. He knows he can beat him because he finds a way to throw it there. So that means if with Hutchcraft being in that, the Buffalo Bandits took advantage of thinking the Nick Rose theory and going low and scaring him to go down and making them to shoot the ball up high, so where they got the goals to come back after that 5-goal run. And that's huge too. If you're not in a streak like that, you're going to lose games like that, because that's how the Rochester actually went on. As I'm looking from the first to the second quarter, they were on a 5-goal run until we finally stopped the bleeding.
Yeah, and with this win, I mean, you can come up with any excuse in the book if you're a Rochester fan. Oh, we had our backup starting, whatever. I saw the refs, or the comments from the Nighthawk fans about the referees on Twitter were absolutely hilarious. They said the refs screwed us. I said, you're right. The refs didn't give the Bandits as many calls as they should have. But thoughtful insight there from our our friends down there in the 585. Referees, I talk about them every single week. I don't want to even give them a spotlight. They suck. They're
No.
ridiculous. We're moving on from that. But the fact that Rochester fans are blaming the officials is hilarious to me. They gave them
Mm.
every call in the book, every little
Yeah.
technical loose ball push that shouldn't have been called, letting the
Yeah.
boys play. I mean, everything was a technical foul. But it didn't stop the outcome of this game from being a great finish, which is good, which I like to see. But the win that we had over Rochester puts us in the driver's seat. If the season ended right now, we would be hosting a playoff game against the 5 seed. We get the head-to-head tiebreaker over Rochester. We're both 3-2. I
Mm-hmm.
believe we're only trailing behind. I don't have the standings in front of me, but I believe it's Albany, Georgia, Toronto, and I
Toronto,
think then
it
it's
goes
us.
Albany, Toronto, Georgia, us.
Yep, which is pretty good. If the season ended right now, we would be hosting the 5 seed Knighthawks for a playoff game. So I kind of like where we are right now. I love that we have the head-to-head tiebreaker over Colorado and Rochester. I feel like you got to put those in the rearview mirror behind us because we don't have the East and the West standings anymore. So
Nope.
these
All brand
head-to-head
new.
matchups, maybe against the Vancouver, against the Colorado, against the Georgia, or against the Calgary coming up. I believe we're facing against Saskatchewan coming up in the schedule at home too. Those head-to-heads are equally as important as what would have been an Eastern Conference game last year. So you
Mhm.
got to win those, and I think the Bandits have been doing pretty well with those. Man, if only we tied up that game late against Georgia, I think we'd be in the driver's seat for a top 3 spot. But we got a lot of games left. The one thing that can really leapfrog us to the top of the division or top of the league is a face-off guy. I mean,
Mm.
when you traded Brad McCulley and didn't bring in a player that knew how to take face-offs, that had me in a state of questioning. And then when you look at the stats this week, week 7 against Rochester, 8 for 32. That's not going to
Ouch.
cut it. Ouch is
Ouch.
right. Ouch is right. That's not going to cut it.
Mm-mm.
When is it time to be like, okay, McKay, like, we love you as a transition guy. Phrase, we love you as a forward, but stop taking faceoffs. Is like,
Mhm.
when is it time to look outside of the organization? If Adler's not coming back, when is it time to find someone? Because I believe we're only 7 weeks in. We're approaching week 8 really fast. I think it's overdue to find a guy that knows how
Mhm.
to take faceoffs.
Well, I think Adler needs to really reconsider and saying, hey, it's nice to work for ESPN and it's nice to work for a company that's huge in the broadcasting world. But again, um, we need Adler back. We need
We
a
do.
face-off guy back. We need someone that has some skills in the face-off dot, because if we don't set the pace and set the tone, we could be in trouble for the long run. And that means postseason, and we may be a one and out done deal if we don't have someone to battle for those face-offs that we desperately need to control the game. And if we don't control the game, Trev, we are in serious trouble in the near future if we don't get a face-off guy again. I mean, I know
Exactly.
Max Adler is on the roster still. They still have him on there, but it's just, again, it's just the whole spiel with with basically what's more important, sports or work, and it sucks. And again, it's the same that has, when we lost Brad McCauley, is that his work is home in Vancouver, in British Columbia or whatever, and it sucks to see him go for that reason, because we love him here in Buffalo. We wish he never left. And again, it's now someone else's turn to step up and fill the spotlight for that toughness and do that one timer kind of goal for the Buffalo Bandits. But again, it sucks not having a Max Adler.
Exactly. And more faceoffs equals more what? More possessions, which
More
probably means
possessions,
more
more goals.
goals, more opportunities to score. And I don't know if it's a dangerous thought, but if we could score 15 on Rochester while only winning 8 faceoffs out of 32, can you imagine the amount of goals we can score on Rochester with a Max Adler, with a Jay Thornbert type of player? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're probably pushing 20 plus as far as offensive possessions go. And I like the way that this team battles out in the corner for loose balls. And they're like, if we're not going to win faceoffs, we damn well better scoop up every loose ball in the corner, which I do like a lot. So with every negative, there is a positive with this team. For the first time this season, they are above 500 with a 3-2 record. We
Yeah.
got the Riptide coming into our building. Again, you know, a team that can win faceoffs. So I,
Okay.
I, I think we have to find a guy that can take faceoffs. Look at how you found Max Adler. You found him from the
Mhm.
outdoor leagues. He wasn't even thinking about playing for the Bandits, playing indoors until you gave him a call. It's that easy. Go
Yeah.
find somebody from Archers. Go find somebody from Chrome, from the PLL. Go find somebody from these D1 colleges that be like, hey, on the weekends, instead of getting trashed at the bar, do you want to go play in front of 16, 17,000 fans in Buffalo? Like,
That'd be
how does
great.
that sound? While you're getting your degree, make a couple extra, couple extra $1,000, pay off your tuition, come play with the Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah, that would be something if we could find another replacement or have like the same skills as Max Adler did. But again, it's like who can you really call unless we start making some moves and making some trades to get a face-off guy again? I mean, obviously we have enough goaltenders to support it, but again, um, I don't know what the JT's theory of keeping four goaltenders is, but it's really starting to kind of question me as saying, hey, are we going to get rid of some of these guys to finally go play on a different team and watch them shine into something big and have like Georgia's guy from St. Bonaventure come back and beat us at our own house? I don't know if we want to do that, but again, if you want to have all perspectives of the game to go well, your offense, your transition, your defense, your goaltending, and most importantly, your fogo. If we need a face-off guy really bad, and if you have to give up somebody, that's going to be tough to do because who on this roster deserves the goal because we just need a face-off guy?
Well, after the departure of Brad McCauley, that left me thinking nobody's safe on this team. Like,
Nope,
that
I don't
was
think
the
so.
most out of left field move I've ever seen this organization do in a long, long time. And it
Mm-hmm.
was that has to be a wake up call to the players. If I'm not playing up to expectation, and Brad definitely was. So I don't even know if that even has to do with anything. If skill level on the field does, uh, I have a chance of leaving this team. I don't understand trading away prospects like Kazevnikov for goalies that don't see any playing time. Like, those moves are
Right.
just head scratching to me. Like, you're going to trade a prospect like Kazevnikov and you're not going to bring in a guy that can take faceoffs. You're gonna trade away Brad McCauley for two number two picks, and one of them's in 2026. So you didn't get one faceoff guy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you traded Brad McCauley to Philly and got or to the New York Riptide and you brought in freaking Jay Thornburg, I'd be like, well, that sucks that we lost number 10, but at least we have a balls off the walls, cracked out face-off, get off guy who's going to win 70% of the face-offs, the winningest face-off guy in NLL history coming to the team. I understand that, but the moves have been head scratching to me, Tony. It's almost like Steve Dietrich, this isn't him. It's somebody else behind the scenes. And I don't know what's going on, but we're 3-2 right now. We have a lot of flaws, but we have a lot of positives. And I think when you have like the leadership that you have in Johnny T and the leadership that you have in Matt Vince, you're going to squeak out these wins where it's like it's not the prettiest thing ever, but we have our secondary guys that can score, and we have the right leadership on this team. We have the 2023 championship banner, for God's sake, behind us, and
Yep.
we're going to use all of that as motivation to go in and win out all these games. And the closeness factor, we're winning. We're not blowing teams out. It kind of reminds me a little bit about how we won games last year. Like, we weren't kicking teams' asses last year like we were in 2022. Games were
Mm-hmm.
nail biting towards the finish, and we're kind of getting that same effect here in 2024. So if it's going to be the same to march back to the championship, count me in, sign me up.
I mean, yeah, that would be the kind of case that if it's working, don't change anything. But again, it's still concerning. It's also making sure to say, hey, I mean, do we want to risk it? And then the positives are we do win games and we continue to move forward from here. Great. If it works, keep going with it. If something happens, say like an injury or like that trade, like you were talking about, I mean, with Steve Dietrich thinking, Brad needs to go home. What could we get from him? I was thinking you could have gotten a draft pick, sure, but what pieces are we technically missing that fills the rest of the concept of what we need? Face-offs.
Yep.
I mean, McKay, he's trying. You get Chase in there, he does try. And you got Weiss, he tries as well. But who's consistent? Like, say, a Nardella or Thornburg, like you mentioned, or
Baptiste.
Baptiste, or all those guys that are locked. and they have a set team. Well, yeah, Baptiste went from Philadelphia to the Seals, but still a threat in the faceoff circle, and that's something that we desperately need. A guy that can win faceoffs and score whenever he feels like it. And I'm not saying Adler didn't, because he had a few goals under his belt, but I'm saying a guy who can march down there and set it up for our offense or take the chance and score. Because
Yep.
that's what we need again. We need that faceoff guy. I mean, I would have accepted saying, okay, whatever your faceoff guy in Vancouver is, we'll take him and a draft pick for Brad McCauley. Okay, so you got your fairway, we got our fairway of a future draft pick, thinking possibly another Fogo guy if this guy doesn't work out, but at least we got a faceoff guy.
Yep.
And that's what scares me too. It's like, let's figure this out. Let's really think of who we should trade and who we should get for, because that's the mentality that you got to want to keep in the mindset of the Bandits, is to make sure that the team is working still, but we need to still fill in the blanks of what we really need. And right now, the Bandits only really need is a faceoff guy.
And all it takes to change our whole mentality is a phone call from Adler saying, I'm ready to go. Get my jersey ready. I'm ready to go. I mean, why else would he post on his Instagram? I'm not trying to be like an inside source or anything, or like a conspiracy theorist, but like right after Brad got traded, why the hell is Max Adler putting out on his Instagram that I can't wait to be back in 2024? Like that, there's something going on there. I think he expects to be back. Maybe it's not this week, maybe not next week, but all it takes is one phone call to be like, all right, Johnny, all right, Steve, like, Chugger, I'm ready to go. Like, get my jersey ready. I'm ready to go. And then once he comes back, all bets are off, man. I think it's you get more possessions. Your offense is still electric, and your secondary guys are stepping up. Your defense, for the most part, has been locking it down the whole season, holding Georgia to less than 10 goals, holding San Diego to less than 10 goals, holding Colorado less than 10 goals. You know, sometimes giving up 13 goals is going to happen when you hold all those great teams down to less than 10 goals. And your goaltender, for the most part, has been great. He's the greatest lacrosse goalie of all time, and congratulations to Matt Vince for being the first goalie in NLL history to achieve 150 wins as a starting goalie. I keep saying he's the GOAT. So congratulations to him. He's the GOAT. When you retire, when you leave, whatever, when you depart away from the orange and black in the 716, you best believe that 48 is getting hung in the rafters next to Johnny, Darius, Rich, hopefully Mark pretty soon. Your number is going to be up there for sure.
Yeah, Vince is, like I said, time and time again, he's not perfect. He's not a wall, but when he's locked in, he's dialed up. And let me tell you guys, and yes, a lot of people and a lot of fans are going to say, okay, he's old, he's washed up, he's starting to look like his age. He's starting to look like the goaltender that first began as a rookie and allowed almost everything to go in. Is it nerves? Yes. Is it possibly thinking retirement? We'll see. But that's up to him. And you know what? Again, hasn't allowed more than double-digit goals in, let's see, we are now 5 games in. He's done it only twice. Again, with those 3 wins, well, now with the 3rd win as making it against Rochester and only allowing 13, but within those 4 weeks after week 1, he's been himself. And we all got to just realize, you know, if you get a shutout in the National Lacrosse League, pat yourself on the back, because that's very difficult to do, especially in a game of
impossible. Yeah,
it's nearly impossible. I mean, if you do it, that's amazing, and that, you know, you should be like recognized and so forth. But I mean, if Matt Vince, you give him like that game 3 where he only allowed 4, only a goal per period,
tying an NLL record, telling it
like that.
I think he tied an NLL Finals record with giving up 4 in a game. God. I think that's what it was.
That's impressive itself.
It's insane. But you know what? And to all the Bandit fans that think, oh, get him out of the net, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
No.
Who else do you want? Who else is out there that's better? What you want the Bandits to have Hutchcraft? What, you want the Bandits to have Higgins? You want the Bandits to get freaking David DeRuscio? You want the Bandits to go out and grab Alexander Bouquet? Like, who do you want? I want 48 on this team. That's all I want. And I think we got to get into our player of the game, too, because we are running out of time here real quick. But the hat trick king, the assist machine, I got to give it to the Deuce, man. Chris Kluche
Yeah.
is my player of the game for sure.
Yeah, Chris Kluche again has got that powerful left-handed shot, especially with the way, like you were mentioning before, with that sidearm. Chris has been again one of those guys that you can rely on in case no one else can turn it up. And he's number two has definitely been becoming number one lately of goal scoring, but not as much as Josh Byrne has. But again, that line is dangerous between him, Byrne, and Smith, and that is
Power
a
play
big
is
tip for
dangerous
him.
too. You get that
Yes, he
sidearm
is.
on a power play, it's over.
I'm going to say for my go-to guy, um, I'm sticking with one player that has really impressed me and stayed consistent, and that is Chase Fraser. Fraser has scored 2 goals per game, and again, secondary scoring. When you ask for somebody like that to step up, especially on the power play where most of his goals have been happening so far this year, that's a reliable guy you would never want to leave away from your team, and that's who you want to keep around for a very, very long time. So, Chase, if you're listening to this, please beg and plead Buffalo to re-sign you for another 2, 3, or 4 years
Restructure
because
that
you
contract.
deserve to stay here. Because I think in the long run, you're going to be up there with the guys that have been producing, and you are on your way to do so. So again, my guy Chase Fraser.
Yeah, 95 is electric. And 20, no, not 20th goal, the 12th goal, ESPN top 10. If you're talking TSN lacrosse goal of the night, I don't know how you underhand scoop that and sidearm it at the same time and still go top shelf.
It's
Only
sick.
only a few players in the league can do that, and Chase is definitely one of them. So, talk to Chugger about restructuring that contract because 1 year for you is criminal.
Mm,
You
it
know,
is.
I understand giving Dane Smith 5 years, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, dude, come on. Chase Fraser was a huge part of that game 3 last year. He's been a huge part of the offense this year. Restructure that deal. Turn it into 2 or 3 years at least. Come on, what are we doing? That's criminal. The money and the contract length that we're giving him. So, definitely Chris Kluche and Chase Fraser definitely putting on a show against Rochester. Hopefully they do the same against New York. But Tony 15-13 final score. The Bandits are 3-2 for the over 500 for the first time this year. Kind of took them a while to get their feet wet, but they're back where they want to be. I think you should hit us with the sponsor, and then you know what we should do after that is record the preview for the New York Riptide game.
Yeah, I think that's an amazing thing to do. And what we'd like to first and foremost thank our main sponsor, and that is to be Mitchell's Tavern, located at 734 Sheridan Drive up in Tonawanda, New York, for the best beef and wick in town and amazing service. Go check it out and tell us that how you feel, especially mentioning us, the boys from Banditland Boulevard, Trevor Hauer and myself, Tony LaMonica, to let them know to say, hey, these guys told us to come here. We wanted to try out the food and
We
see
heard
what
it's
the type
good,
of service
man.
you guys have.
We
And
like
believe me,
we like beer.
their
We
wings
like
are
beef.
really
Yep.
good too.
Yep.
If we're gonna do another wing challenge, it
You
might as
got to
well
be
be those.
undeniable. You got to be undeniable in those wing challenges. Absolutely.
Also, we'd like to thank those who are watching us live, especially on YouTube. Guys, please hit that like and subscribe button and also that notification bell every time we pop up and get on board of Banditland Boulevard to get your input on all of Buffalo Bandits lacrosse needs. And for those that are listening, also on Spotify.fm, on Anchor. We'd like to thank those who listen in on every device possible, phone, tablet, laptop, you name it. We'd like to give us that 5-star rating and to have our podcast keep on going further than necessary and have one of you fans come on board, because we are still yet to wait for a message from any of you to say, hey, I want to be a part of Banditland Boulevard. So guys, please do not be afraid to give us a call. Give Trevor, myself, anybody on Facebook or Instagram, let us know if you want on board, but we will be more than happy to have you.
And also keep your eyes peeled because we were supposed to have right around a month ago. We were supposed to have Pat McCready on for an interview. Our whole
That's
family got
true.
sick, and I was like around Christmas time, so we're like, yeah, we got to restructure this and come up with a different date. So we're still
We'll
restructuring
get them back.
that. We'll get him on. Reaching out to some other people, trying to get Luke Wiles back on the show too, because you know that
Oh
guy's an
boy.
absolute that guy's an absolute fucking beauty, absolute machine. So if we can get Luke Wiles back on the show, man, that would be awesome. So keep your eyes open for that. And as we go on this season, while you're on YouTube, just hit the like button because when there's more likes, it gets filtered into the algorithm more, and our videos will pop up more, and that'll be awesome. So like that's what we want to see. We want to see more recognition. All it takes is one little click of a button, and then the little thumbs up thing will be highlighted, and you're good. You did your job. We're
Absolutely,
not
guys.
saying, donate $1,000 to us. Just give us a like. We just want to be in the algorithm. That's all we want. So we
That's
want more
it.
people to understand the greatness of the Buffalo Bandits and the great sport of indoor lacrosse. So all it takes is one little click on the thumbs up button. That's all it takes.
We don't ask much. We just want you guys all to enjoy the sport as much as we do. So, guys, hit that like and subscribe, and also hit that notification bell because every time we pop up, we want you to hear on in about Buffalo Bandits lacrosse.
Bandits, final score 15-13 over the Knighthawks. We will see you on the next one when we preview the upcoming game against the Tide. Coming back to the KeyBank Center. So I think we got 3 words to say to close out this show, Tony. What words would those be?
And here we go. Let's
Let's go,
go
Bandits.
Bandits.
Let's
Let's
go.
go.